Tweening is a quick and easy way to create an animated GIF in Photoshop. In an earlier movie, I showed you how to tween layer visibility to make part of an image appear to fade in and fade out during an animation. There are two other layer properties that can be tweened. One is layer position, and the other is layer effects. In this movie, I'll show you an example of tweening those two properties. I'm going to be working with this layered file that has a background layer and a single type layer. On the type layer, there's just this word surf, which you can see if I turn the visibility of the layer off and then back on. I'd like two things to happen to this word during the course of the animation. First, I'd like the word to move into the image from the top right corner and down to its current position, and as it does move down there, I'd like the word to change color from a peach color down to the white that you currently see here. I'm going to work in the animation panel, and there I see a single frame for an animation that's created automatically by Photoshop. I'm going to make a second frame by going to the Add Frame button here at the bottom of the animation panel and clicking that button to create Frame 2. Frame 2 is just a copy of Frame 1. Actually, I'm going to leave Frame 2 as it is because this is where I want the animation to end up, with the word surf colored white and in this position. So I'm going to go back to Frame 1 and make some changes there. I'm going to go over to the Layers panel and I'm going to uncheck Propagate Frame 1 so that the changes that I make here aren't repeated on Frame 2. One of the two things I want to do to the surf type layer is to change its color between frames. So on Frame 1, I'm going to add a color overlay layer effect by going to this FX button at the bottom of the Layers panel and choosing Color Overlay. That opens the Layer Style dialog box. Over on the left, you see a list of all the various layer effects, and you actually can animate any of these effects by selecting it here and then varying its properties over here in the middle of the Layer Style dialog box. For example, with Color Overlay selected, I can change options for the Color Overlay effect here. In particular, I'm going to change the color. So I'll click in the Color field, and that opens the color picker, and then I can move my mouse into the image and sample a color from the image. I'm going to click on this peach color, and that immediately changes the color of the type layer. I'll click OK to close the color picker, and OK again to close the Layer Style dialog box. So now on Frame 1, if you look in the Layers panel, you'll see that color overlay effect. And if I go into the Animation panel and I switch over to Frame 2, the text goes back to white and you no longer see the color overlay effect. So that's one change. Now I'm going to change the position of the word surf between Frame 1 and Frame 2. I'll go back to Frame 1, and with the surf layers still selected in the Layers panel, I'm going to get the Move tool in the toolbox, and then I'm just going to click and drag that word up to the top right of the image. When I get toward the corner, you can't see it anymore because it's blending in perfectly with the background. So I don't even have to bother dragging the word completely out of the document window if I don't want to. I'll just leave it there. Now I'm going to click back and forth between Frame 1 and Frame 2. And as I do that, the color and the position of the word surf changes. But I'd like there to be a smoother transition between those two states, and so I'm going to add some more frames in between these two that I've created using Photoshop's tweening. I'll click on Frame 2 here, and then I'm going to click the Tween button at the bottom of the animation panel. Here in the Tween dialog box, I'm going to tween with the previous frame, which is Frame 1, and I'm going to try adding 10 frames in between, and I'll leave everything else at its defaults. What I'm most interested in here, though, is the position and the effects parameters of this layer. I'll click OK, and that causes Photoshop to make 10 additional frames for me. Frame 1 and Frame 12 are the two frames that I made, and Photoshop made all these frames in between. To preview the animation, I'm going to go back to the first frame by clicking this double-pointed arrow at the bottom of the animation panel. And then I'll click the Play button, and let's see how the animation looks. That's just what I wanted. I'll play it again for you. You can see that the word surf comes in from the top right, and it changes from peach to white as it comes in. All that's left to do now is to optimize and save the GIF animation by going to the File menu, down to Save for Web and Devices, and here optimizing this as a GIF just as I would any single GIF, choosing controls that make the image look good and that keep the file size down. And because every frame of this animation will optimize with the same settings, I'll be sure to preview all of the frames using the controls down here at the bottom right of the Save for Web and Devices window. When I'm satisfied with my GIF settings, I'll click Save, and I'll save this animated GIF, which I can then bring into Dreamweaver or some other site building program to include in my website.